The Founding Fathers were absolute madmen, the dark truth. Your teacher was too scared to tell you. You think you know the Founding Fathers? Nah, you've been sold a myth, a beautiful patriotic myth, wrapped in flags and marble statues. But peel back the layers, and what do you find? A bunch of flawed, contradictory, deeply human men who built a nation on stolen land, stolen labor, and stolen ideals. And the worst part, they all knew. That's what makes this story so damn tragic. Let's start with George Washington. The man, the myth, the dentures made from enslaved people's teeth. Yeah, you heard that right. Those famous wooden teeth, not wood. Human, pulled from the mouths of the people he owned. And let's not pretend this was some dark secret. He ordered them, like a fucking monarch. The same man who wrote, "Government is not reason. It is not eloquence. It is force," spent his life enforcing the brutal logic of slavery while calling himself a champion of liberty. The cognitive dissonance here isn't just hypocrisy. It's psychological warfare against his own conscience. And the battles, oh, he lost. A lot. The only reason America won the revolution wasn't Washington's genius. It was the French showing up like, "Jesus Christ, you lot are terrible at this," and bailing us out. But we don't talk about that, do we? We talk about the father of his country crossing the Delaware like some divine general, not a guy who froze his army's feet off because he couldn't admit defeat. Now, Thomas Jefferson? Oh, Tommy boy. The man who wrote all men are created equal while owning over 600 human beings. But here's the real kicker, he knew it was wrong. He called slavery a moral depravity and a hideous blot. He feared divine punishment for it. He trembled at the thought of God's judgment. And yet, he never freed them. Not even Sally Hemings, his wife's half-sister, whom he raped starting when she was 14 years old. He fathered 6 children with her, promised her freedom, and died with her still enslaved. This wasn't just hypocrisy. This was torture, self-inflicted. A man so brilliant he could pen the Declaration of Independence, so cowardly he couldn't face the consequences of his own morality. He wept over slavery in his letters. He shuddered at the thought of rebellion. And then he did nothing, because freeing his slaves would have meant financial ruin. So he chose wealth over soul and called himself a hero. Pause, let that sink in. And the Louisiana Purchase. The man who hated centralized power just doubled the size of the country with a single unconstitutional stroke of the pen. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, they say. Well, Jefferson invented the playbook. John Adams. Now here's a tragic figure. The only founding father who didn't own slaves. The guy who defended British soldiers after the Boston Massacre because he believed in justice, not mob rule. The man who wrote the Massachusetts Constitution, so progressive it shames the US Constitution. And what did he get for it? Hated, mocked, forgotten. Why? Because he was a grump. Because he refused to play the game. Because he told the truth, that the revolution was half idealism, half rich men protecting their wealth. And nobody liked that. So they erased him. They replaced him with the myth of Washington and Jefferson, the pretty liars. Adams knew what they were, he called them out, and for that, he got buried. James Madison, the nerd who wrote the Constitution and then proved he couldn't govern his way out of a paper bag. This tiny, frail man, 54, 100 pounds soaking wet, somehow convinced America he was a genius. And then War of 1812. The British burned down the White House because Madison couldn't defend it. His own capital, gone. And what did he do, ran? While his wife Dolly saved Washington's portrait from the flames. The man who designed the government failed to govern. The ultimate irony. And then there's Andrew Jackson, the original American psychopath. A man who ignored the Supreme Court, destroyed the National Bank, and forced Native Americans on the Trail of Tears. A man who carried bullets in his body from duels like they were badges of honor. A man who invited the public into the White House for his inauguration and then had to flee out the back when they trashed the place. And yet, the people loved him. Because he spoke to them. Because he pretended to be one of them. Because America loves a strong man even when he's wrong. So why do we still glorify these men? Because myths are easier than truth. Because we'd rather worship idols than face the messy, contradictory human reality of power. The Founding Fathers weren't gods. They weren't even heroes. They were men, flawed, brilliant, cowardly, brave, who built a nation on compromise and cruelty. And if that doesn't sound like modern politics, if that doesn't sound like human nature, then you haven't been paying attention. Drop a comment. Who was the biggest fraud? Washington, Jefferson, Adams, Madison, or Jackson? And don't say all of them. Pick one, because accountability matters. Smash that like button if you're pissed that they lied to you. Subscribe for more uncensored history. And ring the bell, because next time we're talking about how America turned these flawed men into gods and why that's dangerous. Stay angry. Stay curious, and remember, history isn't about worshiping the past, it's about judging it.